the James Baldwin interview, and of course the Stevie Wonder episode, and the Earth, Wind and Fire making their first television appearance.
Patti LaBelle.
And Patti LaBelle. Those, I mean, those are marquee moments. Was there a particular show or guest that you didn't get to include in the film that just resonates so much with you?
Absolutely. And let me preface this by saying, you know, we knew we had a limited amount of time and we wanted to be economic with our storytelling, which is very important as filmmakers. And what we were doing was a little bit unusual, sort of a hybrid idea of blending or marrying the story, the biography of a man with the biography of the show. And at first that was a hard sell to people because they were saying, well, it should be a biography. It should be American Masters. You should be doing something, you know, cradle to grave about Ellis. And I said, no, we want to drop in on these 5 years that were so special. And so we're going to make that choice to just cover the 5 years.
Well, you put it in context. You put it in context and also wanted to add the artists that were involved.
Exactly. But the tricky part was then if something didn't support the story we were telling, we had to leave it out.
How would that show have survived today? It's
hard to imagine how a show like Soul would survive today, especially because it was so unfiltered. It was unapologetically Black. It was controversial just for being a true mirror of the Black culture without any restrictions.
And he cultivated all of these people.
Black voices speaking to the problems of our time.
Ellis said, if we're going to do something for the Black community, it's got to be a lot deeper, jazzier, even more controversial.
It's about time I hear something besides blondes have more fun.
There was, you know, of course we have to remember it was pre-FCC. There was no 7-second delay, and that.
And no bleeping.
And no bleeping, with one exception, when they did bleep the Amiri Baraka poem, and that we put that in the show. That's actually the original piece of footage. We did not bleep that ourselves. It was sort of a late bleep. It was rather comical. But when you think about what's happening today and what the objectives are, and there are direct parallels between the administration that we have now and Nixon's stance. He was very nervous and against any type of display of progressive, liberal media and how that cast a negative light on the administration. I think if Ellis Haizlip were alive today and we had a show like Soul, it would probably have to be maybe on a different platform.
You could do anything you wanted.
The FBI was very, very disturbed by that.
How did we get rid of it?
I know you were very young when the show was actually on. When did you become aware of who he was and what he had done?
I became aware of Ellis Haizlip. First, he was my babysitter. So he started with a very early connection because he lived with us during the show when he was taping. In the early days, we were living on West End Avenue and 80th Street on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And he was taping the show on 55th and 10th Avenue and had the office right there at WNET Channel 13, the flagship PBS station for New York. And I just thought he was magical. I knew that he had the best friends and the most incredible people always around him. I didn't know what that meant as a little girl, but as I started to get older, I realized, oh my goodness, he has so many relationships that are meaningful and they're all artists. And it was always very intimate, very personal. It was never about celebrity. It was about trust and mutual adoration. When I moved to New York permanently, he asked me to join him to be his associate producer on projects. So I got to sit in on rehearsals for Alvin Ailey as he was creating a special for PBS, Great Performances, Dance in America. And so I always had these inside looks into the mind of someone who was very much an impresario. Then I went to work with him at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture, which is the New York Public Library in Harlem.
What do you prefer, producing or performing?
Well, gosh, that's a tough question to ask. No one's asked me that. I would say producing at this point because I love culture and I love the arts and I love creating. I think I come by that genetic strain from Ellis a little bit, honestly. I really love pushing the culture forward as well and creating more opportunity. I always wanted to make this film because what he did was so revolutionary with the show and creating this expansiveness around the culture. And I kind of waited for someone else to do it. I was excited that people were writing books about it, but I realized this is such a visual medium. And now in this digital world we have, there's so many ways to be innovative and to be filmic and cinematic. And so to take this sort of telegenic moment that really propelled Black culture into the zeitgeist, it was important to document that and really to look back to see how far we've come. And now we know how far we have yet to go, but to really, it was a love letter to Black culture. And I knew that Ellis's work needed to be documented. And so in producing that, that was very rewarding, and it continues to be.
This, as far as I know, no TV program that deals with my culture so completely, so freely, and so beautifully.
There is nothing we cannot do.